The AFL season is now just 2 days away from starting. You gotta be kidding me. Make that 3 days away, because unless you've been living under a rock, you should have heard the news by now that unfortunately 2 games in Queensland are going to be postponed due to the massive Cyclone Alfred that is tearing southeast Queensland at the moment. So they've had to postpone the games due to weather. It does make sense. So for the first time ever that I can think of, we have a home and away round with just the 2 games. Probably the only ever time we're ever going to see this happening. Despite the postponed games, it does still mean that footy tipping is back in 2025, which I'm super excited for. The season is still right around the corner. And with that, of course, there'll be a new footy tipping competition in 2025. So like I do every single year, I like to make a new competition. This year, I have a new one for the 2025 season. So at the moment, we have around 187 members. Feel free to join. There will be prizes. I haven't revealed them just yet, but I am working with a few little brand sponsors. So hopefully through that, I can increase the prize pool and the prizes can be a little bit better than last year's, because there'll probably be cash prizes. There'll be like first, second, third, whatever they'll end up being, maybe even a mid-season award like last year. However, at the moment, I just haven't announced the official prizes for 2025. But despite all that, links are down below. Get tipping. Let's get as many members as possible. Last year, we almost had 2,000. Let's get more than 2,000. And of course, if you've been watching the tipping videos over the last few years, you know that I like to do big calls as well as punishments. That will still be continuing this year. I will be reverting back to the original 3 punishments a week in the regular season. But because we only have the 2 games this round, I'm not going to worry about punishments for this week. I'll still do a couple of the big calls, but just more for fun. So all of that will sort of be more revealed in round 1. Hopefully by then I do have the prizes locked in. But yeah, the tipping punishment rules, the end of year punishment if I don't get the big calls correct, sort of just wait for round 1 for all that, because it's a bit of a mess right now with opening round. And one more thing, there also will be a fantasy comp like last year. I did give up like halfway through the season, but I'll try my best this year around. Feel free to join. The code is right up on the screen. And if you do enjoy fantasy, I am going to be doing a weekly series members only. So if you're interested in that, I'll be going through my team and I have my own fantasy draft league for members and probably a tipping comp as well with little extra prizes. So if that does interest you, feel free to become a member. $3 a month. That's the lowest price. That's something that is an option. Now, if you are watching this and want to get updated every week with the tipping videos and all the other footy content, hit that subscribe button and let's get to 43,000 subs. That was the goal before opening round, and I think we're certainly going to smash it. So hit that subscribe button. Watch out for all the content heading to 2025, because the content this year will be taken up to a new level. With that all being said, I think it's time to go through the tips for opening round. So unfortunately, we do just have the 2 games because of Cyclone Alfred. And of course, knowing my luck, I had to book opening round flights and accommodation for the 2 games in Queensland. But I think I'll be able to negotiate around it, and I think I'll be able to go to both of the Sydney games instead. So expect content for both those games. Unfortunately, I can't go to Queensland anymore, but it does make sense. I mean, why would you want to play footy in conditions with exceeding winds of 150 kilometers an hour and up to 600 millimeters of rain? That would just be the most stupid idea of all time. So luckily they did make the news already. That's why this video is being released a little bit later, just because I had to wait for the news to be announced. Just really quickly, let's just go through what my tips would have been, even though they don't really matter or count for anything. So for Brisbane Geelong, assuming the game would have gone ahead, assuming the conditions would have been horrendous and low, wet weather, low scoring, I probably would have gone the Cats in an upset, because I mean, Brisbane sometimes start off season a little bit slow, and the Cats, they did it last year at the Gabba as well. So I'd say the Cats by 11 points. It would have been my upset tip. And my big call would have been that the total points combined would be under 110. And for the next game, Gold Coast Essendon, another game I was originally planning on going to. I actually thought this was going to be the game of the round in terms of, the competitiveness and closeness. Again, though, if it would have gone ahead, it probably would have been wet, but I would have tipped the Suns by 3 points with my big call, Isaac Kakko and Nate Caddy going goalless. But they're irrelevant. They don't matter. Let's just get straight into the proper stuff. We've got the 2 games. Arguably just my opening round tip and prediction, because we barely have any to go through. The first one is on the Friday night, 7:40 p.m. at the SCG. Sydney taking on Hawthorn. I'm really excited for this matchup. It's a great opening game fixture. Arguably better than Brisbane Geelong, you could say. Obviously, it'll be really interesting to see how Sydney bounce back from a really poor ending of 2024, getting really badly beaten by the Lions in the grand final. And teams find it kind of hard to recover from that, but they've had a pretty good preseason, so I've seen some good signs from the Swans. And of course, the Hawks finished off the season really strong in 2024. 2024, had a massive resurgence and only went down by 3 in the semi to Port Adelaide. Would have been a Hawthorn Sydney prelim, would have been a much better matchup, but we get to see that happen early in 2025. I feel like I probably lean towards the Swans a little bit more. They seem to be a little bit more impressive in the preseason, more so than I would have thought. I mean, against the Suns, I thought they had a really strong game with a lot of their star players out. Like Heaney wasn't playing, Grundy wasn't playing, and I don't think Warner was either. So I expect them to all be back. They'll be without Goulden for a bit, but I still think they could probably get on top in the midfield. That might be where the game possibly is won. Throw on the likes of Rowbottom. James Jordan, I thought, was impressive in that preseason game. And then obviously you got the move of Tom McCartan up forward. Could actually be a genius move from Dean Cox, which I wasn't really the biggest fan of until I saw the way he went about his last 2 games. Hawthorn are going to be an exciting side in this game. They've certainly been one of the more overhyped and overrated teams in the preseason, but I mean, that's just the media view. It doesn't necessarily mean they're not going to deliver. However, I just feel like maybe take a backward step on Hawthorn. Maybe they won't be as good as their back end of 2024 suggested, and I just feel like there's going to be a lot more pressure when you have more primetime games, and I think it's going to be a competitive game, a good one. If it's wet, it might suit Hawthorn with their smalls up forward potentially. I just feel the Swans are going to have they're just going to have that one big quarter to break the game away, maybe where they kick 5 or 6 goals, and that sort of is the difference. It might just be a little bit too much of a task for the Hawks to come back in. So I'm going to say the Swans get up by 20 points in the first game of the season, and my big call on this one, I think it might be a game that's won in the midfield. And I'm going to say that the Swans record 10 or more clearances than the Hawks do in this game. The second game, which is also the last game of the round, unironically, we do have GWS and Collingwood, and probably will be able to attend this game as well, which is crazy to think of after 2 days ago. Like, this is sort of all last minute plans. This is going to be a hard one to tip. If you can see in the graphic, 65% of the people are going GWS. This is, in my opinion, probably the toughest game to predict of the round. I mean, the Giants are at home, but the Pies are heading to this one favourites, and probably rightly so given their form and given a lot of the hype they've had heading into this season. I think they're going to be a really strong side. They've obviously added the likes of Tim Membry up forward, Perryman and Dan Houston, who won't be playing, so you've got to factor that in as well, to be fair. But regardless, I still think the Pies probably have a stronger side on paper heading into this one. The Giants, I think, are still going to be a really good team in this year, but I didn't really like their games in the preseason. I know they were preseason games, so you can afford to be shaky before the real stuff. But if they continue, particularly in their defence, I thought, even though they have one of the stronger backlines in the league, some of their players like Taylor and Iden were making too many simple mistakes that they just wouldn't normally make. The forwards of Collingwood, like Bobby Hill, Tim Membry, Jamie Elliott, McStay, Mychek, they'll make you pay like they did in a few of the preseason games, and I think could teach the Giants a little bit of a lesson. Normally, home teams win the opening round fixture, and last year the Giants got a really easy win over the Pies, I think by 6 goals. I think this could be a bit different. I think the Pies are set for a stronger season, and they're going to want to get off to a strong start with some of the new recruits firing. Even with Tom Green out for a little bit, Jake Stringer as well, I think it's down to Jesse Hogan. I think he needs to have a big say if the Giants are going to win this game, and I think the Giants are going to find a way and hold on by 15 points with a big call. Jesse Hogan kicks 5 or more goals.
This is the end.
Oh, for fuck's sakes. Well, it looks like I'm going to have to change what I said there, because it looks like Jesse Hogan isn't going to be playing this week for one of the dumbest reasons you could ever think of. He broke his thumb jamming it in a door. Well, because of that, I'm changing my tip to Collingwood. The Pies are going to win by 15 points now. Take away the 5 goals of Hogan, give it to the Pies, and I'm going to change my big call to Nick Dacos records 40 disposals. Screw it, it's not really going to matter, is it? All right, well, those are my opening round tips. I was going to go to both home teams, but that Jesse Hogan out is honestly a bit of a worry, and even though the Giants still have a pretty decent forward line, I just feel like all around the ground, the Pies are just going to get on top, and they're going to have the more home supported. So, yeah, it's Sydney and Collingwood are my tips. Let me know down below your tips for opening round. I think the Brisbane-Geelong game will be moved to round 3, and Gold Coast Essendon, I don't know when they're going to have that game, but it'll be at some stage throughout the year. Remember to join my footy tipping comp, and also don't worry about leaving a punishment for this week. That'll all be worried next week. Just the tipping comp and fantasy comp if you want to join that. And yeah, we'll see you soon in my next video. Cheers.